at him, but denied being a close friend of his. He said he didn't think he was a bad man, and under cross-examination, Mr Hutch's barrister Brendan Grehan asked him why he would say that if he had supposedly confessed to him that he was one of the men who shot David Byrne. Dowdall said he didn't know the full background of things at that stage. After watching the recorded Garda interviews, Mr Grehan again accused Dowdall of telling lies. Dowdall accepted he had, but he said it was a lie of necessity. He told Mr Grehan that he couldn't tell the truth at that point for fear he and his family would be killed. His cross-examination will enter its fourth day tomorrow morning. Frank Graney at the Special Criminal Court.
The European Central Bank has raised interest rates by 0.5%. It's the fourth increase since summer. The president of the ECB, Christine Lagarde, says there will be more rises in the new year. That's it. We'll have more in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Need a last minute gift? Ryanair gift cards delivered straight to your inbox.
Rest of the evening will be cold and clear for most parts. Scattered wintry showers will continue in northern counties. Some fog patches persisting in inland Munster. Temperatures will fall well below zero quickly after dark. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The News Round on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo.
This is News Talk.
All right, you're welcome along. It is Thursdays Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock. We've got a busy show ahead. It is France who will play Argentina in the World Cup final. It's been quite a week since we last spoke to John Giles. We're going to talk about the brilliance of Messi, Mbappe, what went wrong with England, what went wrong with Brazil, all that coming away with John from 7:30. And then from 9, Kevin Kilbane back with us once again on the football show, live from Qatar from 9 o'clock. Ursula Jacob will be looking ahead to the club Camogie finals. They're taking place at Croke Park on Saturday. And after 8 o'clock, we're going to talk to Meg Linehan, who's senior writer for The Athletic. And Meg was the one who initially broke the story of allegations against Paul Riley, a coach in American soccer, just over a year ago now, and it has led to any number of investigations, and one of them, a joint report compiled by the National Women's Soccer League and the Players Association, was released last night. And Vera Pauw, the Ireland manager, is one of 9 coaches named in that report. And it says that Vera Pauw shamed players for their weight and attempted to exert excessive control over their eating habits. Players credibly reported that Pauw criticised players for their appearance, for example, saying that some players were too big, while praising other players for losing weight with no apparent correlation to performance or health. It says that players were shamed for their weight, attempted to exert excessive control over their eating habits and every aspect of their lives. So we're going to talk about that, about the full report, because there is some really horrifying detail in there on Paul Riley and Christy Holly, who's a coach who was born in Derry, who was working in the league as well. That's coming up after 8 o'clock. And the FAI AGM is actually on this evening. So the FAI haven't released any statement as of yet surrounding Vera Pauw, but we are expecting to hear from Jonathan Hill, the FAI CEO, a little bit later tonight. Richie McCormack is with us. Good evening, Richie.
Hey, Nathan.
Joe Molloy is there as well. Good evening, Joe.
Evening, gents. How are you?
I'm sure a lot of people have been reading the headlines around this report. It is 125 pages long. It's incredibly extensive, and the vast majority of it is on far more serious allegations against male coaches and sexual coercion of players and their treatment of young female players. But Vera Pauw is one of 9 coaches named as, I think, part of a bigger culture issue, and it is mainly around weight shaming and Vera Pauw. And I'm sure people have read this and maybe have seen the headlines that, you know, Vera Pauw didn't want anybody eating fruit because of the high sugar content. And I've seen a lot of comments that, well, you know, Antonio Conte went in at Tottenham and banned ketchup, and this is what managers do, and managers want control. They want full control over everything, and that professional sports people should be fit, that their weight should be in check all of the time. It is worth pointing out that the quote is, she appeared to want to control and micromanage players' diets and exercise regimes, even when her weight loss directives were inconsistent with sports medicine's best practices. So there's questions that are definitely going to have to be answered around that. Maybe the biggest question that Vera Pauw is going to have to answer is about the fact that when a player went to Vera Pauw about a teammate struggling with an eating disorder, the Vera Pauw acknowledged that happened, that somebody had come to her, but denied any role and stated that the reporting player should have taken responsibility as an adult by looking out for her teammates sooner, and that when questions were raised, that Vera Pauw didn't react appropriately.
Yeah, there's a lot in it, as you said. It's also worth mentioning that Pauw appeared but refused to cooperate in an interview. This is a very thorough investigation, and as you rightly say, there are a range of offences here, right up to criminality, down to absolutely much lesser offences, inappropriate comments about players' weight, for instance, in Pauw's alleged case. But she appeared before the investigation and refused to cooperate, but she did provide a written denial of what she suspected were the allegations against her, which is curious, I think, in many ways. I mean, so she had a suspicion of what the allegations were, but she wouldn't cooperate. I would suggest, unless there was very compelling advice, she should cooperate with an investigation as official and thorough as this, but that's for her to explain in due course. They spoke to 100 current and former players. They spoke to 90 current and former staff. There were 200,000 documents examined here, text messages, emails. The joint investigative team do make the point that there were allegations against certain coaches where a burden of proof wasn't satisfied, and therefore those names and details were not included in this report. And they make a point as well of saying in their introduction that they didn't name people lightly here, that there was either a need for public accountability, or the misconduct was severe, or the misconduct was repeated. But they stressed we didn't just throw names into this report, and Vera Pauw's name is in this report. So I'm very curious to see what the FAI say later on this evening. I would think, looking at the report and absolutely acknowledging Vera Pauw's denial, the FAI in all likelihood have to set in motion an independent assessment of the Vera Pauw setup as it currently stands and as it has been, because they have a duty of care to the Irish players. And so they need to get credible people or a credible company to investigate and report back as quickly as possible. It doesn't need to become a media saga. It doesn't need to become a witch hunt, but everybody needs to be satisfied, in light of this very credible report in the States, that things are being done properly around the Irish camp, and we proceed from there. So I think that is step one here, and that's an important step, and I'd be surprised and disappointed, frankly, if the FAI did not make that move. As for the nature of the offences, Nathan, in Pauw's case, I mean, there are accounts of Pauw having, quote, outbursts, emotional yelling in which she would get up into a frenzy. It seems she was living in the same complex as a number of players, and there was a control freak element to her behaviour in the reports of the players. Again, the obsession with diet and size seems to have been very strong. As you rightly say, I think some people will read that and say, well, Pep Guardiola doesn't let players train if they're the tiniest amount overweight. It may well be in the delivering of the message that the issue is as much as anything. Although the report does say that some of the directors were inconsistent with sports medicine best practices, for instance. So, I mean, that needs to be looked at. I think on a broader level, which includes the Pauw allegations as opposed to the more serious allegations I stressed. But on a broader level, this reads to me like the beginnings of the HR workplace world starting to get involved in dressing room culture, because some of the the outbursts and the emotional yelling, for instance, I think they would be behaviours which would be almost romanticised and celebrated. We can name, the hairdryer we don't even need to say the manager.
I was only telling the story yesterday of Harry Redknapp slagging off Adil Tarap for being a stone and a half overweight and being useless and lazy, and everybody laughing along at it.
Yes, precisely. And those examples are plentiful. And in GAA dressing rooms, right through to professional dressing rooms, the story of managers, frankly, losing the rag, or in the words of this report, emotional yelling, outbursts, being overly controlling, all of these things, they are a part of the culture. And this strikes me now as the beginning of workplaces trying to police dressing rooms as workplaces. And I suspect managers and players of previous generations will shake their head and say the game is gone. But I think maybe perhaps dressing rooms and what went on in them was just excused far too readily for far too long. And this is probably the beginning of it, because reading the account of Pauw, again, not knowing specifically what went on, I wasn't there, but I would think many coaches in world sport, not just in football, would read those accounts and think, well, if that's crossing the line, I have also crossed the line. But again, why Pauw didn't cooperate with the investigation, I think is questionable. And certainly the FAI have to satisfy everybody that best practice is being followed now around the women's team. And I think that needed to happen post-haste. So they're my broad thoughts. I don't know what line you want to jump onto.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the line about what's acceptable in a dressing room and how that will develop over the coming years. We recorded Meg before we came on, and we're going to put it out at 8 o'clock. You can watch it on our social channels now. And I did make a broad point of, are we going to have to look at how females are coached compared to male players? And she was making that valid point of, well, maybe we'll need to look at how male players are coached and what is acceptable towards male players, because as you say, I think everybody's been in a dressing room, like, it's every manager comes in and roars and loses their head, and even listening to what Eddie Jones has been doing in recent weeks, like players left in tears. Like, should that just be acceptable because it's a male player and we tell him man up and take it and it's for the better of the team? I don't think so. I think you're right. I think there's definitely a tone issue, obviously, with Vera Pauw and the way she comes across to players, but there are things that she will have to answer surrounding a player coming to her and raising a concern that what Vera Pauw had said had contributed to a teammate's eating disorder. Vera Pauw denying that and saying that the player who reported it should have taken responsibility as an adult. Like, these Irish players spend a lot of time in camp. The FAI need to be sure that if there was an issue at any stage, that it would be handled differently to that. We don't know as of yet. Do the FAI, were they aware that Vera Pauw hadn't cooperated with the inquiry? So I think there's a lot of questions to answer, and I'm surprised there hasn't been a statement yet. Vera Pauw is actually due on the show tomorrow evening, and hopefully that will go ahead and we'll be able to ask her these questions. Richie, I know the FAI AGM is on this evening, and there is a media conference on later tonight, so regardless of what happens at the AGM, I suspect this will be topic number one, and Jonathan Hill is going to have to talk about it.
Yeah, it's kind of superseded everything. Another thing, I'd be curious to know if they knew of any of these allegations before Pauw was appointed, because she was in charge obviously in Houston in 2018, seemed to leave there kind of abruptly, and there was kind of ambiguous language in her statement when she said she left, or why she left, and she thought it was best just to head back to Holland with her husband at the time, which is one of the lines in it. So it'd be interesting to know if they were aware of any kind of hint of this kind of stuff before Pauw got the Ireland gig, and how they reacted to it as well. Like, as Joe mentioned there, is key, because there will need to be that investigation, even if it's not entirely long range, but they need to find out from the players what the atmosphere and what the environment and what the culture is like within that dressing room under Vera Pauw at the moment. Because, like, as we mentioned, the allegations laid towards her, one regarding the eating disorder, is obviously bad. Generally, in the scale of the report, she's at the lighter end of the scale. But regardless, for her to be named in such a public manner and for her to be in charge of a national football team, it's not a great look for this stuff to come out, particularly with the World Cup on the horizon. The
written denial, Joe, that Vera Pauw sent to the investigators hasn't been published, so we'll have to see, does Vera Pauw release that herself? As you said, it is quite unusual that when she went in front of them, she refused to cooperate, but did seem to know what was coming and what she was going to be accused of.
Yeah, that wording struck me as very interesting. I'm not cooperating. I don't know the specifics of what you're alleging, but here's my defence nonetheless. Again, it remains to be seen. That may have been just a very short statement to say I've behaved impeccably at all times, regardless of what the allegations are, or it may have gone into great detail and may have been lengthy. Again, that's where
the FAI have just released a statement, Joe.
I was just going to read it out there as well. Yeah, the Football Association of Ireland is aware of an NWSL and WSLPA joint report into historical events within its own league, in which Republic of Ireland women's national team manager Vera Pauw has been referenced. Neither the FAI or Vera had sight of this report before it was published. And we note that Vera has already expressed her views to the authors of the report. The FAI crucially continues to support Vera and her team as they prepare for the upcoming FIFA Women's World Cup in 2023. And so that statement ends.
It doesn't really answer anything, I think it's fair to say.
I don't think that cuts the mustard, frankly.
No, I don't know what the line, neither the FAI or Vera had sight of this report before it was published, and we note that Vera has already expressed her views to the authors of the report.
Well, the report says she didn't cooperate with the investigation. they make a point of stating that she didn't cooperate with the investigation. And I'm very surprised. I would have anticipated a placeholder type statement this evening that the FAI were going to read this report over the coming days, discuss things with Vera and go from there. And again, you just have to independently assess what's going on with your own players now. There's a duty of care there. Again, I accept Vera Pauw has denied the allegations. I accept they're on the lower end of the scale. But that notwithstanding, the report said they didn't name coaches lightly, and that they were very confident in naming coaches that there were credible allegations. And so I think it really behoves the FAI to absolutely ensure that the working environment for those players who've been through plenty under the care of the FAI, if we can use that word, over the last decade and beyond. Because now you run the risk, let her tenure play out, absolutely, do nothing, don't look into it too closely. And then what if when she leaves, a player feels more comfortable in speaking up and saying, actually, there was a problem? That leaves the FAI in an unacceptable position, I would say. So, look, it doesn't have to be a witch hunt. It has to be look, this report has been published. It behoves us now to ensure that everything has been done properly, and this is a happy camp, and let's just do that.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that FAI AGM, and Richie, I know there's a press conference later, so we can report on that, and it'll be on all our social channels as well, and I'm sure they'll be talking about it on OTB AM in the morning. The news round is brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. What else is happening, Richie? Yeah,
Daniel Wiffen, in better news, has become the first Irish swimmer in history to set a new European record. The Armagh swimmer shaved 2 seconds off the previous best in the 800 metre freestyle with a time of 7 minutes 25.96 seconds today at the Irish Winter National Championships in Dublin. It makes him the 4th fastest of all time in the discipline. And speaking to Swim Ireland afterwards, Wiffen says he knew he had something special in him this week.
Yeah, I knew that I'd be sub 7:30. I was aiming for a top 10 in the world ever, so I think that puts me 4th. But I said quietly that I'd go for a European record to all my friends in Loughborough. But yeah, I'm happy. Yeah.
How good is this guy, Richie?
Seemingly very, very good. He's been on the radar from quite a young age. Obviously, he's working over in Loughborough with the athletes over there in England, so has been performing at a really good level at underage tournaments, and then kind of dipping his toe into more senior events recently as well, and seemingly has it within his grasp to go on and be one of the I don't want to say one of the all-time greats, but certainly in terms of Irish swimming, if you're talking about somebody at his age who's now the 4th fastest of all time in the 800 metre freestyle and a European record holder, and this is all while he didn't really have ample preparation time, he said beforehand, for this tournament, and that ultimately he looks towards the long course. This is a short course obviously meet, and he's looking towards the long course stuff next year. The ceiling for him is very, very high, it would seem.
We have full live and exclusive commentary of Ulster La Rochelle on Saturday evening in the Heineken Champions Cup, and we have
if it goes ahead,
Munster against Northampton at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Poor old Oisin Langan is on commentary, and you know Oisin, he likes his Michelin star restaurant for lunch. Like, he doesn't know whether should I go in Belfast, will I be down in Dublin? There's still no confirmation as where this game is going to happen.
No, not yet. They said they're going to promise daily updates on the state of the Kingspan Stadium pitch. There hasn't been one so far yet today. If there has been in the interim, please by all means let me know. But yeah, they have been using heaters and they've been using frost covers and all sorts to make sure that Saturday's game does go ahead. One player who won't be involved though is Andrew Warwick, the prop, hit with a 3-week ban for that dangerous tackle last week on Sale's Manu Tuilagi. The incident occurred during the defeat to the Premiership side in the Heineken Champions Cup, and the prop is going to miss this week's game with La Rochelle, the following week's game in the URC with Connacht, but Warwick could return for the New Year's Day derby meeting with Munster. That's if he attends a tackling coaching course, something of course Bundy Aki benefited from in terms of an early return in the autumn.
It is a complete mess for Ulster 2 days out from a huge game after the hell of a beating they took last weekend. Their CEO Johnny Petrie sent out a statement about half an hour ago which didn't really clarify anything, just saying that works are continuing, they're keen to play the game at Kingspan Stadium and come back tomorrow for more information. It seems one of the problems, obviously the weather's going to get better on Sunday and they'd like to push the game back, but this is the free to air game in France, and the World Cup final is on Sunday. France are playing in that, so that doesn't really work, and every team does need a backup. Their backup is the RDS, so they'll have to make a decision sooner rather than later.
The key words in that statement, I'm looking at contingency plans and continue to be in regular contact with the EPCR. So I think there's an underlying pessimism to that statement and their ability to get the game played on Saturday, which means there might be 2 days of carvery for Aroshi Langan, which I'm no doubt he's probably happy about. But yeah, I wouldn't be overly confident reading Johnny Petrie's statement there this evening that this game will go ahead. Although, as you mentioned, the weather's going to improve. I was looking at the Belfast forecast earlier on today. It's going to marginally increase in terms of temperature by a couple of degrees. It's not going to be sub-zero anyway, at least tomorrow and Saturday, I don't think. So fingers crossed on their behalf. But to get it done, I think when they need to get it done is going to be paramount to them, because Sunday's going to be ugly.
The other problem for the Champions Cup, Richie, is the Gloucesters of this world who turn up with their second string side to take their beating at Leinster.
Do you know what? There is a wider point here as regards how seriously or otherwise teams are taking this, because there was an attendance issue, of course, of the South African sides. For all the talk of them joining the competition, they didn't really turn up in terms of their crowds anyway, at least last week. But certainly, yeah, Jonathan Sexton returns to the Leinster bench for tomorrow's Heineken Champions Cup visit of Gloucester to the RDS. A calf injury means he hasn't played since November's win over the Springboks. Leo Cullen has made 4 changes to the team that trounced Racing last week, with Luke McGrath, Ronan Kelleher, Ross Maloney and Jack Conan all coming into the starting 15. Gloucester have made 13 changes to the team that saw off Bordeaux last week. Only fullback Lloyd Evans and winger Alex Searle are retained. Leo Cullen was asked today about the threat posed by the Premiership side.
Well, set piece is our biggest thing. Very strong kicking game. Line-out maul, I think, is probably the biggest threat. So, you know, they kick the ball a lot from 9 in particular. Obviously, Meehan has come in, very experienced player he is, but it's the line-out maul is probably the biggest threat. So that's what we've tried to prepare our forwards in particular with this week.
It's a hell of a convoluted system, the group stage of the Champions Cup now, Joe. I won't ask you to explain it. It does feel like it's a knockout stage competition now, and you just want a competition where the best teams want to play each other every single time and put out their best 15.
Yeah, and the group stages used to be so great. You know, that's the other strange thing here. So we are where we are. This competition has been messed around so badly on several occasions, and it's suffering for it now. The group stages are just not what they were. But to be like, that said, I really enjoyed opening weekend, because we had, well, the Ulster drama was its own mad drama, and the La Rochelle game now is so must watch if you're if you're in any way interested in Irish rugby. Leinster away to Racing was brilliant. This Friday won't be very good, but Leinster have always, particularly of late, had teams that they hockey in the group stages and even in quarterfinals at times. And then Munster away to Northampton, that's very interesting as well. So I think from an Irish point of view, it hasn't been a bad schedule this year. But on the whole, yeah, I've yet to meet anybody who likes the direction it's going in. Knockout stages will be brilliant. I'm not as down on it, I have to say, that this tournament as people generally are. I understand the sense it's not what it used to be, but it still gives us some of the best rugby we see all year. So I don't know. Like Gloucester, we've always had Gloucester turning up and here we're here to take our beating, unfortunately. It's
going to be brilliant. 5:30. Ulster Larry.
Sorry, is that the one that's on?
No, that's
we have
not
that
one.
one.
We don't have that one. So
Grant. Yeah.
You know, we pick the best games. Of course.
Well, if we have Ulster and Munster, they genuinely are the two games.
They are the absolute pick. Richie, give us 2 quick stories.
Bundy Aki returning to the Connacht Centre for tomorrow night's Challenge Cup game away to Brive. Their first starts as well for tight head Sam Illo and lock Darren Murray. And France look set to have almost a full deck from which to deal for Sunday's World Cup final. Adrien Rabiot and Dio Upamecano returned to training today, having missed last night's semi-final win over Morocco through illness. Meanwhile, Poland's Simon Marciniak will referee Sunday's final. The 41-year-old took charge of France's group game with Denmark in the last 16 and the clash of Argentina and Australia, while Portugal are the latest country to opt for a change in manager after a disappointing World Cup. The 8-year reign of Fernando Santos came to an end today following their quarter-final defeat to Morocco. The 68-year-old did manage Portugal to their European Championship victory back in 2016.
You know, Joe, one of the most important things for a radio producer is to have a poker face. So, Mick McCarthy sits out there every night and inside he hates us. He hates us as we overrun. We don't go to the ad breaks. We don't do the thing we want. But somehow he just keeps his eyes down and doesn't acknowledge us in any way. So when I threw to Richie there, Catherine literally had her head in her hands of, how could you do this to me? And now she's shaking out. She's angry. She's really angry.
She threw her pen at the glass towards me last night.
She had a full-on Dunphy. How could you do this to me?
Yeah. It's tough in there. It's not going to get better over the next 2.5 hours.
No. It's going to be a long night. Raise their eyes to heavens at you there, Joe. So we got to go. Richie, you're back at 10 o'clock though. You're
yeah, covering for Tom Dunn. Yeah, from 10 till midnight tonight, and then a bunch of nights over the Christmas as well from Stevens' day onwards. So yeah, keep your dials tuned to News Talk after Off the Ball for all that.
Hardest working man in showbiz. Joe,
absolutely,
what a man.
Enjoy your weekend.
I'll see you in January, guys. It's been emotional.
Oh, Jesus Christ, you lazy bum.
Where are you going next Thursday? We're going to be right here. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, okay.
We'll talk to you next Thursday. All right, John Giles coming up in a moment. Time for the cash machine.
All you need for Christmas.
News Talk's Christmas Cash Machine.
The Christmas cash machine continues to give out huge prizes all throughout December. We've already given out over €460,000 this month, and we're going to give away some more. The winning continued today when Diane Smith in Galway became our latest and 148th winner of the year. This is shaping up to be our biggest week yet. We're giving away a 40k prize, two 50k prizes, a 60k prize today, and what better way to finish then topping that with a 70k prize in the Christmas cash machine tomorrow. This is the number you need to know. €71,052.65. Text play to 57557. That's 57557. Get your entry in by 3 tomorrow. Then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn will make that call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings. Tell him the exact amount in euro and cent, and you'll win it all. It is €71,052.65. Over 18s only. Text cost $2.50 plus your standard message rate to play. You're playing across the Go Loud network of stations, and terms and conditions are on newstalk.com. John Giles next.
The News Round on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, in association with Movember. Effortless shave.